Good evening, everyone. Welcome to again. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Entrepreneur's Kitchen. It's tradition that streaming gets broken for 1 millisecond at the very beginning, and now we just keep going again. Well, I have a very special evening to announce. This is the first time I will be hosting a couple at the show, and they will be co-cooking. And we were just joking in the background that hopefully this is not going to be some sort of a catastrophe. But I'm sure it won't be. It's going to be extremely amusing, and that couple is lovely and also very, very interesting. So I'm really looking forward to tonight's guests. Please welcome with me Franziska and Thomas Wizany. Hey.
Hi.
How are you?
So yes, we are fine. Still.
Are you?
So let's see what happens during the next 45 minutes.
That's hilarious. Too many days under quarantine in one household, and now you have to cook together on live stream as if there is no pressure.
Pretty well, but being together in the kitchen and cooking together is always a challenging thing.
But in the household, what is the problem? Because we are used to it. But in the kitchen is other thing.
So this show is going to be the kitchen impossible for our couple tonight. Before we start, let me announce a couple of things so people can ask questions. Please go to the Mindshift TV on Twitter if you have any questions you want to ask, also about the recipes and about the professions of our guests, What are we cooking? That's always the first question.
So the recipe is a very, very simple one because we have only 3 ingredients. It's in fact is an Italian recipe because I am a very big lover of the Tuscany, and so we chose the Tuscan recipe with only noodles. It's a very special kind of pasta. I will show you. It's called pici, and the pici are type of thick spaghettis, you could say.
Thick spaghetti.
Yes.
This is really, really typical for Tuscany. The other thing, the second thing is pecorino. It was really
pepe.
Yeah. And
so it's the 3P.
Yes. The 3P.
Exactly.
It was really our luck that the fish shops opened today in Salzburg, so we could go to this super cheese shop with 300 different sorts of cheese to buy this pecorino, because usually it's very difficult to get it in Salzburg.
Yeah. Awesome. So let me introduce you a little closer before I introduce my food. Franziska, you are a cultural entrepreneur. You have worked in different advisory positions for also the Mozarteum Foundation here in Salzburg, and now you're working with the puppet theater, the traditional puppet theater in Salzburg, and trying to help them, find innovative business models for the future. And Thomas, I think for our German-speaking, especially Austrian audience, there is no need to introduce you because everybody knows you from the first page of the Salzburger Nachrichten. Thomas is a caricature artist, and he's been working with Salzburg newspaper for how long now?
Yeah, more than 30 years already.
Oh my God, you were
I started when I was quite young. And my real profession, if you can say so, is the architect. But I always say I'm clean. I'm not working anymore as an architect because since more than 30 years now I have these 2 professions, architect and cartoonist. And I have to say at the end, the work as a cartoonist for me was very more attractive because you are so free as a cartoonist. As an architect, you aren't. Because you have your clients, you have the budget, you have the ground, everything, the laws. But for me, cartoon drawing is one of the last really free professions.
Well, it's actually, I think you're quite right. I mean, when we think about also the freedom of expression. I think if you're a cartoon artist, then you can go to places where other people would be very careful about.
Yes. Yes, but we have to say in Austria, I'm really very happy to execute this work here, because there are places in the world where it could really be in danger to make this kind of work. But fortunately, we live in Europe and in Austria, and so the freedom of expression we can guarantee.
That's awesome. Franziska, you're grating the cheese already?
Yeah, because it's a lot of cheese.
You're like 45 minutes. Now finally we can cook the pasta, put the cheese on it. We're done.
Jello player, yeah.
So I have an egg here. And I have some lemon juice pre-pressed, and I'm going to have some red paprika. How do you say it? Powder. It's sweet paprika powder, and that's going to be. And I am going to. Well, if you want to, you can use also some olive oil on top of it, and it's a great egg starter. Actually, you can have it in the morning. It's like a full meal if you put it on a piece of bread. What's that?
Post-Easter starter, because with the egg. Well, you have some eggs in your kitchen.
Well, I love eggs. It's incredible how much you can do with just a couple of eggs. So
Me too.
Exactly. Well, Franziska, let's talk about your work. So how does it feel to be working with for a company, for a theater company that actually doesn't have real actors?
Well, there are actors. They are not, well, the puppets are probably the protagonists, but there are actors behind. But when I say behind, it's not really behind, because there are the protagonists who really give the theaters and the puppets their lives. And it's really incredible for me. It was, well, I came to the Marionette Theater, actually, I just had this passion for puppets when I was really, really young, but actually there were some developments why I'm not actually working for Marionette Theater, but actually I didn't have a real idea what's really behind and on stage. Mm-hmm. And now I'm still so fascinated, because the actors, especially the team, they are so close and they are so passionate for these puppets, and it's really a theme that's they live for this theater, and some of them are working there for about 30, 40, partly 60 years. 60 years.
Oh my God!
Yeah. There's one lady, Heidi, and she's working there for 60 years. So they actually live this theater, they live their profession, and that's really something you probably don't see so much anymore. And it's really kind of family. I entered in a family, and that's also probably the reason why they are so passionate and so strong in now fighting for this theater.
Yeah.
And for its survival. Yeah.
I mean, it's not even easy for real theater work. A lot of people are doing live streams. A lot of theaters are giving out their work for free during this time of Corona. I don't know in hope of what, in exchange at some point. So how do you think a theater like this can innovate? Is there anything in the digital realm? If you were to think about, actually, let's not talk about the theater itself. Let's talk about the industry. When you see the cultural industry, it's not necessarily very digital. It's here and there, individuals are trying to do something, and some larger theaters are doing something. So, what would you think that we need to do in order to be able to actually master a crisis like this? Very easy question.
No, it's
especially not for puppets.
Exactly.
No, actually, it's a really good question. And when me and the team and people working for the theater were going to write this new concept to get some public support, we already had also this question in mind, whether we can adapt the theater in a complete different way, like close the doors and then open it and do something digital, because there are
I
some
lost
people
your
who work with
sound. Wait,
digital
just
projects.
give me 1 second.
Do you hear us?
Yeah, now it's working again. Sorry.
So of course there are some theaters working with digital projects or innovative technologies, but when we took a look at the Marionette Theater in Salzburg, which is more than 100 years old, we actually were all very we had this one opinion that we also had to keep on this tradition, because we thought that also, or especially in these times, it's also very important also to keep on traditions. And probably, well, I think the Marionette Theater is really a small theater, so it's not a state opera with live streaming or whatever, but it is a niche. And if you bring people into the theater, and I brought many of my friends to the theater during the last month, it's really incredible to see that actually everybody, whether they're interested in higher culture and lower culture, in music, in theater, in fairy tales, whatever, they all came out with a super big smile on their face. So it's really something which is still very touching. And I think we are in a time where technologies and digitalization is very important, especially in these days. But on the other hand, I think it's also very important to keep some things which really fill out older times and tradition, but not because it's so old-fashioned, because the production are all adapted and renewed. And for example, the music which will be played via CD these are one of the best production which were ever recorded. So you have a mixture between the super music recording and these puppets which are played very individual by each player. So it's not the one princess and the one dragon, for example. So actually it's always in each performance is different, and each player does it different. So you feel really this individual playing. And I think one thing is that the Marionette Theater has something opera houses or other theaters does not have, is that you have these that you have a better possibility to identify yourself with the puppets, because if you have a singer on stage, then you probably say, oh, she doesn't sing so good this evening, or how her robe is very ugly. And the puppets is something you really always actually fell in love.
Plus, puppets don't make drama, right? They want just be like, oh, I don't feel like going on stage tonight, so let's cancel everything.
You really take something with you at home, which is really much more closer than not close. I want to have this direct comparison to opera houses or to any performances, but it's something which is really touching, and that's a fascination still after 100 years.
Probably also it kind of connects us back to this never growing, hopefully, child that kind of
course, but
Thomas is like just watching now.
No, I think especially for children, because for children it's so interesting when you go to the Marionette Theater, to go before the opera, behind the scenes, and show them the puppets, how they work with this all the details, and then bring them the show. Because normally when children see only the opera, they are so used to that everything is going perfect. But when they before see how simple these puppets are made, so the fascination is even bigger than only to show the opera scene.
Actually, I want to ask now a question to you. Well, since we spoke about the never grown up child in hopefully in each of us, so how does one become a cartoonist?
You have to have big luck in your life. No, because it's a good question, because it's not the profession that you find no school for that or something similar. It happens in a certain way, and so it was also with me. I always, as a child, already very often I drew, and I had really much fun with it, but I never thought of becoming a cartoonist. And so yes, occasionally I met another cartoonist which worked for Salzburger Nachrichten, and then he went to another journal, and the journalist asked him, when you leave us, do you know somebody who could replace you? And then he mentioned me, so this was my beginning when I was 18 years old. And so, so it happened.
And what do you think about all of this, development? I think, who was that? I think New York Times just got rid of their cartoon.
Yes.
So there seems to be a tendency towards no longer being able to laugh. Is everything becoming too serious?
This is a very, very sad development, I think. When I read it, that New York Times, which at the basic is a liberal journal, they not any longer put the political cartoon in their pages. I was really sad, because I think when we lose the capacity to laugh and to see the things with certain irony or humor, we are really lost. And this is the development which goes together with this political correctness, which basically was good to start, because it's obvious that the language influences our habits, etc. If you really now you can't express yourself in an ironic way, or you are accused to be a racist or something like this. This is really, for me, a very sad development.
But do you think that in satire, in comedy, in being a cartoon artist, is there a limit? Is there a limit where you would say this far and no longer?
Yeah, this is a very important question, and I think often people think when you speak about liberty of arts, that the artist should be able and should make everything he wants. And I think this is a misinterpretation of liberty. I think that for me, the liberty of arts will mean that I, as an artist, can choose what I want to make. But it doesn't say that I have to do everything. So I have to know my own limits. And I think this is a very essential part of every artist's work, that the artist himself knows where are his limits. So for me, the limits would be, as a cartoonist, I don't want to blame somebody, or to
respectless.
Yes, you have to keep certain kind of respect, also with a cartoon. And I always say, as a cartoonist, you're telling stories, and I try almost to hopefully make an intelligent story and not a stupid one. So it should be in every kind of irony should be also a nucleus of intelligence at the end.
Yeah, I think your tone is just perfect. If people know some of your work, they will agree with me probably. So Franziska, is it funny at home?
Yes, it is. Yes, he has this typical Austrian black humor, which was very new for me, because I'm from the west of Germany, and I think we also have a good humor, but this is more direct, very direct, sometimes too direct for the Austrians. But I like this black humor, which is very subtle, and I think it is.
I think it's a very interesting question, is the different traditions of humor in the various countries. So there are some things which function all over the world. If you take Asterix, for example, it's a French product, but it works all over the world. But there are there are some cartoons and some drawings that, if you take in Austria, Manfred Dykes, I don't know if you know him, he was a typical Austrian drawer. And I think if you go on another country, even Germany, nobody would laugh about these cartoons because it's strange, it's not funny.
Yeah.
But just now, because you asked at the beginning to do the link to the Marionette Theater, I also think one really big adventure of the puppets is that they also have the capacity to say and to do whatever they want without being criticized by anyone. Instead, if there's a human on stage, then people are laughing or screaming or leaving the room. But for the puppets, especially this very famous Kasperl, you actually have to have a huge wide of space what you can do and what you can say. And so this could also be a great chance in these days to use some puppets, also political puppets, but also the Kasperl or whatever, really to transmit an opinion and to to show people a mirror in a way, without really making them angry or create confusion.
Or without always raising, your finger and telling people what's the right thing to do and what's not.
And I think that's also one of these many reasons why the puppet is also still alive since thousands of years, because it's really something very, very close, and on the other hand, sometimes with a good distance. And I think especially in these times, these puppets or the Marionette Theater or also can be something which is now hopefully will be much more famous in these times more than in older times.
So it looks like it looks like you have already been an extremely well-versed ambassador of the theater. So more, the question is probably more around than the marketing and how you're going to reach new types of audiences. But as I said, I actually don't really want to go so much into detail of the specifics of a certain company, because that's always that might always be a little problematic. And, we don't want to disclose information that's not meant to be public. And I know it happens in this show. People start telling things because we're friends and they forget that it's live. But let's talk about, culture and the digital world in general. I want to hear from both of you. I mean, in both of your cases, the digital technologies have changed the face of how we, get information in terms of newspapers, how we also consume culture, how we curate cultural content, what comes at our plate through the social media, etc. So when you think about the medium in which you're active, how do you think the digitization has changed how you worked before and how you work now?
You start.
Well, I think, and I talk to many people of them that the live performance is actually not really comparable with any streaming. I think everybody, if it's possible, would love to go to a live performance and feel all the spirit. And the thing is, the actors, the whole evening, starting with a glass of wine or whatever. I think that's something very unique, and I hope, that will stay, especially in these days when people are really talking about this health care before entering to a concert hall, whatever. I'm really scared that these actually older times won't come back, because I think that's really something that we need for beautiful cultural evening. But on the other hand, I think we really shouldn't fear these new technologies also in the cultural section for the museums as well. I think it's a wide range of possibilities we have, and that's also something why I also did my personal professional step, really to go into new developments. I think culture is something very old, very traditional, but I think it's super, super exciting to go a new way with it, but always keep on the quality you have. For example, if you do a streaming and you have a great quality, then it's something you can reach so many people and really make them curious about opera, about another performance, also about the Marionette Theater. I really just stepped into this discussion about the theme about AI, and I'm really new, but for me it's really exciting to see what now happens with Beethoven, or probably with the Mozart developments. And I think that's something is also a great chance, really, to convince people about the need of culture. Because I think, and that's the sad story, that really people lost the way really to get in touch with culture in different ways, music, theater, arts also. And so I think entering also in a museum via Google Arts, or whatever, is really a great chance if you're so far away and if you really want to get curious about that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But that is more or less a tool to get curious. I think at the end you have to go to the theater, but maybe more people go to the theater because they saw on a live stream how fantastic this could be, and they then want to feel the real thing. So for me as a cartoonist, digitalization is quite different, because for my daily work, I have to admit, I'm happy that it doesn't matter. I'm really drawing with my pen and my pencil, and I have my paper, so it's like they did it 500 years ago. And I appreciate it very much, because as an architect, I had to change. I had to go to computer-aided design, because otherwise I wouldn't have built any house anymore. And I have to say, in architecture, I think this was is a fantastic tool. And nowadays, with the computer generated design, we can create buildings that wouldn't have possible 30 years ago. If you take Frank Gehry and the Bilbao Museum, or Zaha Hadid and all these architects, I think for them the computer and digitalization was really a fantastic tool to go ahead. For me as a cartoonist, as a little small cartoonist, the really absolutely fantastic thing with the internet is that I'm so free that I can go all over the world, connect myself with the redaction, with the journalists, and send them my drawings from wherever I am.
With the editorial team, do they ever say no?
After 30 years of practice, I know what I can draw and what I can't.
Okay.
No, but I have to admit that I'm really very on the same, the same wave with my editorial team. So I don't feel censored or something like this.
Okay, but do you always just give them one version of the daily? How many caricatures do you do a day? 2?
I make 2, because our journal consists of 2 parts. It's the regional part and the international national part. So I make 2 drawings every day.
And only one version? Or do you do different versions? Okay,
because I wouldn't have the time to make 2 or 3 versions.
Yeah.
Maybe twice or 3 times a year it happens that really my chef redacteur, he says, oh, Thomas, this drawing maybe not. And then if I have enough time, I make a 3rd drawing, but this happens very, very rarely.
That's very interesting. Who were the people who influenced you when you were starting your own drawings in the first place?
My wife.
Well, you haven't been married for 30 years, have you? No, exactly.
In fact, we're married it's 2 years. Yesterday was our wedding.
So, Franziska, you look over his shoulder and say, nah, not funny.
No. Well, at the end, it doesn't matter because you cannot change it. But I think Thomas sees when I'm, right, that's very nice, and when I really start laughing. But it's fine if you do twice per day. That's really a lot. So there are some, as always, there are some which are very good. There are some which are very, very good, and just just good.
Thank you. No, I can't say exactly who had influenced us. Of course, it's my main source of information is Ö1. So
Okay.
I have the real privilege to work at home, not only in Corona times. I always work at home, and so I can create my own atmosphere, which is big part music, which I choose myself, or I have the radio on, and for me it's always Ö1.
Yeah.
And I have to admit that I don't need television. So with the information that come from the radio is enough, plus the information which I can take from internet.
Yeah.
So
you're listening to the news constantly, more or less every day.
yes,
Okay.
in the morning we read the newspaper, but for me it's a little funny to read the newspaper in the morning because I already know what is in the newspaper because the day before I phoned the editorial team. So it's only a kind of review. But as a political cartoonist, you have to be interested in politics. That's
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I find this really, really fascinating because, sometimes you listen to something when Franziska and I were playing my 99 Problems game the other day. There was one statement which said, how to keep sane in a world that is already so crazy or something like that. Do you remember that, Franziska? Yeah. And so when you listen to the news sometimes, like what just Trump said about, this virus is a genius virus. Don't you think sometimes like I can't even be funnier than this?
Yeah, this is really something that happens quite often during the last years, that reality becomes so crazy that it's difficult to top it as a cartoonist.
The real life is much more funny than.
But at the end, you always find another ironic approach, and you can then.
Well, we're taking questions on at the Mindshift TV on Twitter. So you have a couple of questions now. Question to Franziska: classical music often has to work hard to get younger audiences. This is not a problem of the puppet theater, is it?
Yes, it is. It is. But also, one advantage of the puppet theater is really that you have you actually have a lot of target groups, not only one, not only the adults, which are probably had much higher income. We have children, we have adults, we have older people. We have a series just for older people, which runs perfectly. Not at these times, but 2 months ago. And for the children, it's really super nice. And that was also Thomas' first sentence when I told him that I started working for the Marionette Theater with the concept, that his first step into the opera,
classical music,
the classical music actually, was his visit to the theater to watching this magic flute.
When I was 5 or 6 years old. And it really was my first contact to classic music. My father, my parents listened to classical music at home, but with the Marionette Theater, it was more interesting.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But to say that once again, the puppet theater is really not just for children. It's really for adults and for children. And originally, it was actually something for adults to tell stories in a different way. Not only for children.
So now we have another question. It says to both of you, how has the social media changed the way you create content? Do you start thinking about, or did you start thinking about global audiences, or how, or do you still think local or whatever?
Well, actually, for the Marionette Theater, is pretty easy because we already have much global audience of visitors, because we are playing the magic flute and the sound of music, and so Americans or Asians until now were coming to our performances year by year. And to be honest, the puppet theater is also it's perfect actually for social media, or also for television, whatever, because you have these beautiful pictures. You have these beautiful pictures of the puppets very close away the stage, so you can actually, I think you can act with them in a very, very creative way.
Yes, and for me as a cartoonist, I hope it doesn't sound arrogant, but I really don't think on the public. So I on the audience in a certain way. And I hear the news. I speak with my colleagues, with the editor, etc. And then I go to my table, take my paper, and I think what I want to express from
Mhm.
myself. And I'm not thinking on the audience, neither on the politicians or somebody. It's only my
Yeah,
contribution.
yeah, and because
Mhm.
his sense of humor is so it's an Austrian one, or also funny for others, but the difference between the cultures in sense of the humor is so different that you probably cannot really draw a cartoon that everybody's laughing about.
Mm. Well,
But
especially also probably because of the political content, you have to know,
Also, yeah,
very
you
often
know.
this is really local politics.
Mhm.
So
yeah.
when I'm in Italy, I always say I'm world famous at home.
Well, I would agree absolutely. So, but when you start working,
Yes.
what does your creative process look like?
Very often it goes with the words. So I'm speaking on the telephone with my colleagues, with the editorial team, and then we connect with the editor who writes a certain article. And then when he tells me the story in few words, often occasionally he uses some word which in my brain then makes a connection, and I say, okay, with this word creates a picture in my head,
Mm-hmm.
and so with this picture connected with the word, I then start to make sketches, and then have a big sketchbook. And then when I made 5 or 3 little sketches, I think, okay, this one could be the real one, and then
Mm-hmm.
I begin to execute it.
Well, there is a question here on you to you. How important is technique for you? How would you say that you're a great drawing artist? Is it like being about
No, I
being a
always say this
drawer?
is the fantastic thing in cartoons, that there are no rules, and there are no rules of technique. So for me, a very good example is when you go in Niederösterreich. There's a very beautiful
Lower
cartoon
Austria.
museum
Yeah.
in Lower Austria, in Krems, the Austrian Cartoon Museum. And there are drawers mainly from Austria, Switzerland, and Germany, but sometimes all over the world. And when you go there, you see this is such a huge range of different techniques. There are
Mm.
some drawers which, for instance, one Austrian drawer, he uses a technique is quasi like Caravaggio,
Mm-hmm.
and he needs 3 months to make one of his huge in oil cartoons. And
Wow.
there are drawers which take a little piece of paper, take a pen, and make in 3 seconds a drawing.
Mm-hmm.
And both of them are good, so and
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. So for me, the technique is an important thing, but it's not the main thing.
Mm-hmm.
The main thing in the cartoon is the humor
Mm-hmm.
and yes, the
Or how to
intellectual
express,
part and
yeah.
the
Definitely. I mean, when I think about your work, when I see it somewhere, even if it doesn't say your name underneath, um, 99.8%, I would say this is Vizany, and it's like, well, because you see a lot of that, but also you have your unique way of
yes, but
drawing,
it's
right?
only because I am not able to draw in another way.
Ah,
So this is the only way I can draw.
that's hilarious. Well, I mean, so Franziska, how did you guys actually meet? How
How
did
we
you
meet?
meet?
Yeah, by the Mozart Foundation.
By the Mozart, yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
Mozart helped
Mozart
us
is
to get
our
to know each other. Because I was working at the Mozarteum Foundation, and Thomas he worked
architect.
as an architect for the Mozarteum Foundation as well, for the birthplace. Yeah, and so we
Ah.
had some colleagues, but more actually friends in common, and then they made me a present, an Austrian evening. to get to know better the Austrian traditions after 3 or 4 years. And and then they invited some more people, and one of them was Thomas, and
When was that?
well done. And
When?
then we traveled to Italy.
When was this?
5 years ago.
5 years ago.
Okay. Also, you used to also do the architecture work for a quite long time.
Yes, more than 20 years. So I started in Vienna, and occasionally my master, my teacher was also a very famous cartoonist. His name is Gustav Peichel. Passed away last year, but he was an icon in Austria. For more than 50, 60 years, he made cartoons for the Presse, one of the very famous journals in Austria. But this was not the main thing. I went through him because I liked his architecture, and he was a very good teacher. And then for more than 20 years, 25 years, I worked as an architect in Salzburg. And then when I decided to leave the architecture and to stay only on the cartoon way, the Stiftung, the Mozart Foundation, came to me and asked me if I would like to renew the Mozart birthplace. And this was for me a fantastic work, because as a Salzburg citizen, to go into this house and to tell the story, because at the end it's telling a story. And the scientific content comes from the foundation, from the Mozart Foundation, and I had to put this scientific content into a form and to tell the story about Mozart.
Very cool. So it looks like, Mozart brings people together. I and my husband also met.
I think of that. It's so
exactly.
Really fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely.
More than 200 years ago, now still creates all this kind of energy and relations and everything.
Absolutely. Well, Mozart the matchmaker. Look at this. Well, since you guys are so funny, that's your job. I'm going to ask you for a joke now.
So that's Thomas' turn, because as I already told you, I forget all the jokes. I'm laughing a lot, but unfortunately I forget all the jokes. But Thomas is really
no,
good.
I'm in fact, maybe that's why I became a drawer. I'm not a good joke teller. I'm a joke drawer, but I will try. Nobody will laugh.
But I find it quite fascinating, actually. Just before give me 1 second before you start your joke, because now when I was thinking of you, I was thinking about some of my favorite caricatures, some of my favorite cartoons. And when you try to tell it,
yes,
have you seen this? What Wizany did, and he was doing it doesn't.
No, people often ask me in the evening when we're invited, what did you draw today? And I say, I can't tell you. You have to look tomorrow, because if you tell a cartoon, it's over.
It's the same for the Marionette Theater.
Yeah.
The people, Marionette Theater, okay, it's probably a little bit traditional, and there's no digitalization, etc. But when you come, then you will go out and you will definitely come back.
And they're not Kermit, right? It's not Sesame Street. They're very elaborate, extremely beautifully done craftsmanship.
Yeah, especially with a cartoon, is very often the expression of the faces and the movements and the details which you can't.
As well. It's really, each puppet has its own character. It's incredible. Yeah.
Well, now the joke.
Let's try to. What's the difference between bankers and artists when they meet? When bankers meet, they talk about arts. When artists meet, they talk about money.
Well, this is a very political. Well, I'm going to tell a couple's joke, which might be slightly inappropriate. Okay, a woman goes to a doctor. The doctor says, "You have only 6 more months to live. My advice to you: go get married to an artist. and move to Idaho. And she's like, oh, will this save me? And he says, no, but it's going to make those 6 months look very long.
Yours was the better one.
That's you.
Definitely.
As always.
Well, thank you.
You should open the joke channel.
I know. Yeah, I think my jokes are not that bad, but people do just I'm
very happy that we can't draw, because otherwise it would be concurrence.
I can't. I'm going to show you my work.
But as I said, all styles are permitted.
Good news.
But seriously, I mean, we live in the same city. I'm so looking forward to seeing you guys in person soon. At some, well, it's so weird to be in the same city and do like live streaming. But so thankful for hanging out with me tonight. Thank you for taking your time. You guys stay in the line for the after show party. I'm just going to go say.
What about the food, Seda?
Oh, the food! Oh.
Yeah, it is. But I have to be careful.
We have to show.
Here is the food. Yeah, my food too. Oh, look at this. Yeah.
Don't
spill.
Looks yummy.
That was my husband in the background. Yeah. Wait, I'm going to pin your video. Okay, excellent. So well, we will have our food right after the show, and I want to thank you guys at the other end of the stream for tuning in tonight, for being my guests. I'm looking forward to tomorrow's show. We do this every night. It's I was thinking like everybody can do once a week, but we'll do every night. So as long as my guests are not running out of interesting content, which obviously they can't, I will keep doing this. So thank you for tuning in, and see you tomorrow night at the Entrepreneur's Kitchen. Bye-bye.